Remember, true power lies not in ostentatious thrones, but in being able to leave a mark that rises in the desert and is strong enough to defeat time. Today, your name echoes not only in tongues, but in stone, in soil, in the most rooted geography of history. Neither obstacles nor old orders can stand against you anymore. Write 222 in the comments now, because your existence has taken root beyond the past and into the depths of the future. Now everyone will see. The real power is the eternal spirit within the chosen one. Just picture a seed deep in the earth. Nobody watches, nobody cheers. All the world above sees is stillness, but under the soil, in darkness and silence, something miraculous is pushing through rock and dirt. That seed is doing its greatest work in a place where no one gives it credit. That's what real endurance looks like for the chosen. It's not flashy, it's not loud, and it never needs the spotlight to prove its power. It's about growing roots so deep that when the storm finally comes, you stand tall while everything else is swept away. You see, the strongest people aren't made on sunny days. They're shaped in the cold hours before dawn, when faith has to stand in for evidence and hope has to outlast disappointment. Most folks don't realize the battle going on behind closed doors, or the weight you've carried in your heart when no one was watching. But every tear, every moment of silence, every time you wondered if your struggle even mattered, those were the moments God was forging something eternal inside you. In those hidden places, where the world saw nothing, heaven was busy writing a legacy of strength. Sometimes the enemy will try to throw up roadblocks, send whispers of doubt, and build barricades you can't even see. People might misread your patience as passivity or your silence as surrender. What they don't realize is that the deepest rivers make the least noise. While the world expects fireworks, God's chosen are developing a quiet thunder, something nobody can measure until it's unleashed. When you felt the heaviest pressure, when it seemed like the whole world was betting against you, a foundation was being laid beneath your feet, one that no storm could ever erode. You never became strong by accident. Every setback was a sculptor's hand, every delay a craftsman's chisel, every false accusation a fire refining the gold. Just like a diamond is formed in darkness and pressure, the chosen are perfected in hidden struggle. When others only saw your exterior, the real work was being done in the silence. You learned how to be unmovable, not by the applause of the crowd, but by trusting a promise you couldn't always see. There were nights when all you had was a whisper from God saying, "Hold on, your morning is coming." And in that quiet, your roots were growing even deeper. The world is quick to count you out, to predict your end, to measure your limits based on what they can see. But there's always a deeper story for the chosen ones. While others tried to write your ending, the author of your life was busy adding a new chapter. Every time life tried to put a period, God turned it into a comma. Every closed door became a new hallway. Every betrayal became a bridge to something better. When others meant to finish you, heaven was only beginning to reveal the strength that had been built in the shadows. Sometimes your greatest victories come wrapped in defeat. The enemy thinks the final blow has landed, but in that very moment, your spirit begins to rise in ways no one saw coming. What was meant to destroy you becomes the very catalyst for your breakthrough. God specializes in reversals. He turns graves into gardens, endings into beginnings, and pain into the birthplace of purpose. And just like that hidden seed, when the time is right, you break through the surface, not just alive, but unshakable, a testimony to what perseverance in the shadows can create. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. You didn't ask for the battle, but you became the warrior anyway. You didn't seek the valley, but you learned to walk through it with your head held high. People may talk about your scars, but they'll never understand the strength behind your survival. The very things that were meant to break you down have become the evidence of your calling. Now, when the world looks at you and wonders how you made it, they'll have no choice but to admit that something greater was holding you all along. It's not about proving yourself to people who doubted you. It's about fulfilling the purpose God wrote for you before you were even born. The world may have missed your preparation, but they won't be able to ignore your arrival. All those nights you spent in quiet prayer, all those times you kept believing when logic said, "Give up," are about to bear fruit in ways nobody can deny. Remember, endurance isn't a gift handed out in the sunlight. It's a treasure uncovered in the places nobody wants to go. And now, as the curtain rises on this next season, you're not standing where you started. You are rooted, you are resilient, and you're ready. Because what the world called the end was only the launching pad for what God had in mind. This is the season where you don't just survive, you thrive. Where you don't just stand, you advance. Where the quiet strength gathered in the shadows becomes the force that opens every door in broad daylight. Chosen one. Your story was never meant to be about struggle. It's always been about the victory that rises from it. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Let this be your anthem. When others saw a burial, God was orchestrating a birth. When they looked at your struggle and saw a loss, heaven saw the blueprint of a miracle. No matter how hidden your fight was, your victory will be impossible to ignore. Your unshakable core wasn't formed in comfort. It was born in the hard places, the silent battles, and the moments where only faith kept you moving. The world will try to explain away your rise, but you know the truth. It was God who built you in the dark, so you could shine in the light. And now nothing and no one can stop what He's begun in you. If you're still standing, it means your best days are ahead. The weight was heavy because your destiny is great. Every moment of endurance was an investment. Every silent battle was a seed. The time is coming, no, it's already here, when you will see that every hard night had a purpose. You are living proof that when life buries the chosen, heaven calls forth a harvest. Get ready. The world is about to see just how unstoppable you truly are. When alliances were chosen, some placed their bets on limitation, convinced that progress could be outmaneuvered and possibility strangled at the root. But all their intricate alliances and clever moves became the very trap that isolated them. Attempting to diminish what was always destined to grow, they lost themselves in a perpetual dusk, outshined by the brilliance they hoped to contain. Deceit may have bought them time, but it could never shield them from the sunrise of accountability. Manipulation often wears a suit and carries a script, but it cannot hold back what is written on the soul. Layer after layer of deception may try to cover the core, But each act of misdirection leaves a seam, a small opening for truth to seep through. Sometimes a single slip, a word spoken in the wrong ear, a change in tone, a look that lingers too long can topple even the tallest tower of lies. Guilt, the silent traitor, cracks open secrets one at a time, until the whole story stands in the open. There are always moments when reality slips past pretense. The sudden disappearance of a name from a roster, an idea repainted with a new brush, the celebration of someone else's win, eerily similar to your own work. At some point, masks slide, and those who built their empires on borrowed virtue must finally face the emptiness beneath their own ambition. While critics tried to craft weapons from your every word and deed, you learned the alchemy of turning opposition into momentum. Their attempts to slow you became the very friction that built your velocity. Every planted rumor was met with a harvest of achievement. Their orchestrated silence only amplified the thunder of your results. Mistaking discretion for weakness, they never noticed the strength hidden in patience, a calculation that would eventually undo all their efforts. No amount of pressure could squeeze surrender from a spirit trained in adversity. Instead, each setback became another layer of resolve, every trial a new contour in the sculpture of endurance. As others braced for your collapse, they unknowingly witnessed the forging of a will so strong that not even the architects of resistance could comprehend the transformation taking place before them. Judgment often looks at surface strength, titles, circles, public favor, while the real engine of perseverance hums unseen beneath. The ones who underestimated the interior depth, who believed external obstacles could halt the internal fire, never understood how resilience grows from roots invisible to the untrained eye. They invested everything in appearances, missing the invincible structure forming where nobody bothered to look. What couldn't be learned in the open, you mastered in the margins. Discernment grew from decoding fake smiles, reading between the lines, sensing the intention behind the invitation. In the process, you became fluent in unspoken motives, recognizing when a handshake concealed a hidden agenda. All the while, what seemed like loss on the outside was a curriculum in unseen power. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Those who only saw the surface called it paranoia, but this was a rare form of insight, an intuitive knowing sharpened by necessity. It wasn't enough to be right. You had to document, to prove, to deliver results that couldn't be dismissed. In the final tally, what mattered wasn't the argument, but the undeniable evidence, the numbers, the achievements, the tangible outcomes stacking up in plain sight. Excellence didn't just mean hitting the mark, it meant surpassing every expectation, taking what was promised and multiplying it, turning vague intentions into crystal-clear outcomes. Where others saw the end of the road, you found a launch pad, moving beyond the requirements and making the impossible routine. When your work began speaking for itself, no denial could compete with the power of demonstrated reality. Social dynamics shifted as your name appeared, bringing a ripple of discomfort through rooms once confident in their own narrative. Conversations stalled, then awkwardly adjusted, with former critics inventing new explanations for past skepticism. The old playbook couldn't be used anymore. As the facts piled up, people had to find new ways to step around accountability. Admitting the truth happens in stages. First avoidance, then half-hearted approval, finally a reluctant reimagining of their own roles in your journey. The persistent nature of achievement makes denial impossible, forcing even the most committed doubters to eventually acknowledge what's become undeniable. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. Praise often arrives on the heels of previous absence. As your position solidified, so did the frequency of reconnection attempts. Shared pasts were rewritten, visions edited, stories retrofitted to match your rising trajectory. Even the sincerest offers to catch up were sometimes less about support and more about revising old associations. People can rewrite history in their minds, and some will do it so convincingly you'll find yourself checking the evidence just to be sure of what really happened. They may approach you with warmth and stories of teamwork, but only the records confirm the actual script. Obstacles weren't just stumbling blocks, they were signposts to better pathways. Their exclusion taught you the difference between convenience and connection, between short-term gain and lasting value. Every denial made you a better architect of your own future. Every roadblock turned you into a mapmaker who saw new ways around old problems. Trying to contain you only expanded your reach. Every move to shrink your sphere made your influence grow in intensity and direction. Silence became a microphone. Isolation became a rally point for real allies. The very resistance thrown at you was flipped and transformed, becoming the jet fuel for a rise that defied all predictions. At first, those who doubted you chalked up your ascent to luck, a blip, or a clerical error. But when the successes multiplied, when each new chapter made the last look like the prelude, their denial turned to frustration, then finally to a grudging respect. Once the facade of constructive criticism fell, bargaining began. Explanations designed to save face, stories rewritten to make their opposition sound noble, not self-serving. But even the most creative retellings couldn't withstand the proof, and eventually the hard truth remained. They had bet against the wrong story. Realization isn't always public. Sometimes it's a solitary reckoning, a quiet upheaval in the heart. There is no grand speech or dramatic showdown, just a slow internal rearrangement as the facts can no longer be ignored. People who stood in the way are left to wrestle with a new understanding of their own place in the unfolding reality. There are spaces created for those who have been misunderstood and cast aside. Communities form not around memes, but around miracles, shared experiences of awakening, support, and transformation. In these circles, the stories of exile become blueprints for connection, and the journey out of darkness becomes a beacon for those still searching for their way. Within these sacred gatherings, every voice is valued, every lesson recorded, and everyone is reminded that their experience is not in vain. Influence is a fickle thing. Those who once held sway find their words losing gravity as the ground shifts beneath them. Partnerships built on convenience dissolve the moment the tide changes. As circumstances realign, the realization dawns: standing against the wave of progress was a losing game all along. Life has a way of recalibrating the balance without a single word from those vindicated. Light and shadow always return to balance. Those who dimmed the room for others find themselves in a dusk of their own making. False stories falter under scrutiny. Borrowed glory fades, replaced by a reckoning that needs no orchestrator, only time and truth. Actions driven by manipulation eventually dry up, yielding no fruit. Relationships formed for advantage dissolve with startling speed when the advantage disappears. The assets amassed through cunning slip away quietly, like sand through open fingers. The universe resets the scales with a precision that needs neither witness nor approval. Correction rarely feels like justice served with fanfare. More often, it arrives as a slow turning of the wheel, sometimes in a storm, other times as a gentle but persistent erosion of old foundations. Each receives exactly the transformation their journey calls for, guided by invisible hands that know the precise weight of every deed. It's a testament to real growth when the misfortune of those who opposed you no longer brings satisfaction or the need for revenge. There is no pleasure in seeing others lose, only a deep recognition that everyone, in their own way, is fulfilling a role in a greater design. This evolution is freedom. The energy once spent on defending yourself becomes fuel for creation. The space previously taken up by old wounds opens for new dreams. No longer waiting for applause or dreading criticism, you move at a speed and accuracy that surprises even yourself. New eyes see through old disguises. Instinct now instantly filters sincerity from strategy, discerning genuine connection from calculated presence. Obstacles lose their power to confuse. Opportunities reveal themselves with clarity and speed. Intuitive wisdom now calls the shots. You pick up on the pulse of real partnership without effort, recognizing true alignment long before the world catches on. The need for months of analysis disappears, replaced by almost instant certainty about who and what belongs. Personal boundaries become natural and automatic. Without conscious effort, you repel distractions and misaligned energy, making space for the truly valuable. Life itself now becomes your trusted gatekeeper, letting in only what adds to your highest vision. Clarity now sharpens your intentions. The opinions that once had you second-guessing now pass over you like clouds in a blue sky. Drama that once stirred your spirit now reveals itself as hollow and irrelevant, unable to drain your energy or derail your mission. When you limit your attention to what matters, your reach paradoxically grows. By serving fewer, you serve deeper, and by focusing on the right audience, your impact multiplies far beyond anything the crowd could offer. Real influence comes not from volume, but from resonance. In every loss, in every closed door, there was a hidden invitation to become the person you are now. Each setback, each betrayal, every lonely season, all conspired to awaken gifts that comfort never could. There is a destiny only you could step into, shaped by all that was withheld as much as by what was given. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially, far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. Not a single step was wasted. The very obstacles that others feared became the very tools that fashioned you for what comes next. The fires that were supposed to destroy you turned you into something the world can't ignore. The whole story, from beginning to now, has been under the watchful gaze of something far greater than circumstance. The discipline to stay true when shortcuts beckoned, the courage to create under pressure, all of it recorded, measured, and now called forward as you move into the next act. Life's timing is never accidental. Even the waiting served a purpose, perfectly tuning you for the open doors ahead. Every pause, every so-called delay, was simply the universe arranging a series of opportunities that only you, fully prepared, could seize. The choreography of growth is precise. Every challenge timed to stretch you without snapping you. Every resistance acting as a midwife for your next level. There was a reason not everyone saw your worth from the beginning. It was for your protection, your discernment, your ultimate recognition of your own value. Being underestimated was your training ground. Every shadow cast by dismissal became the contrast that made your light undeniable. At the right moment, validation arrives not as a lifeline, but as a nod from the universe that you were always right where you needed to be. What's ahead is not about proving, but expressing. External confirmation, when it arrives, only amplifies a purpose already set in stone within you. You have developed an awareness that cuts through performance, that feels the pulse of sincerity and the undertone of deception. If you feel God's presence, you can tap the join button below to become part of the first chosen ones and receive the most important revelations early. With each step forward, navigation becomes second nature. You spot the real from the fake, the deep from the shallow, and invest your gifts where they will multiply, not stagnate. Now the future unfolds. Paths that were walled off now beckon. New alliances, resources, and platforms reveal themselves because you have grown to fill the space they demand. This is not reward, it's necessity. The world rearranges to accommodate what you have become. Your journey shaped a strength that can't help but seek wider fields. The ground expands under your feet as your influence finds fertile soil. Meanwhile, those who resisted you confront their own lessons as life gently but surely adjusts the scales. There is no gloating, only a steady unfolding of what is due. Some experience a swift rebalancing, others a more gradual awakening to the reality they helped create. All are brought into alignment according to the same laws that shaped you. Your vindication is not just personal, it is a living manual for those watching from the shadows, a living example that becomes a lamp for those coming behind. Your endurance provides the blueprint for others' breakthroughs, turning your private victories into public hope. Every test you faced was a confirmation, every attempt to slow you proof of your significance. The resistance itself proved your value, for if you were no threat, you'd have faced no fight. The very fact you were opposed so fiercely is the surest evidence you carried something world-changing. With new understanding, the old wounds transform into wisdom. The very battles that once seemed random now reveal themselves as part of a larger curriculum, a preparation for a future that could only be entrusted to someone proven trustworthy by the weight of opposition. In the grand unfolding, those who stood against you were actors in your refinement, not enemies. Detachment now clears the path. Their stories move on, as does yours, unbound by old roles or expectations. You move forward not to retaliate, but to innovate. The only response needed to the past is progress. The story writes itself as you accelerate into new territory, powered not by the need for approval, but by the certainty of your own capacity. Past and present blend into one unfolding journey, the detritus of yesterday becoming the compost for tomorrow's harvest. There is a momentum now that cannot be forced or faked. Each choice, each effort is amplified by the lessons burned into your being. Trust in that rhythm. Trust in the unseen hands guiding you through each phase, knowing the same design that refined you through adversity now draws you into creation. Nothing you endured was wasted. Every moment was the foundation for what is now possible. The next chapter opens not as a conclusion, but as a threshold. The proving ground gives way to the proving of your purpose. Those who opposed you shaped you. Those who witnessed your rise become living evidence of what is possible. You stand not as a survivor, but as a pioneer. The winds that battered you now fill your sails. The story was never about them. It was always about what you were meant to build.